Tyson Bennett wasn't expecting to save a stranger's life when he climbed into his battered pickup truck that rainy afternoon, but fate had other plans. His 6-year-old daughter, Daisy, sat buckled in the passenger seat, clutching her worn pink backpack, chatting about her day at school. Tyson listened with half an ear, mind weighed down by bills, work, and the grocery list he couldn't afford. Rain hammered against the windshield, blurring the world outside, when suddenly a figure stumbled into the road ahead. "Daddy!" Daisy shrieked. Tyson slammed the brakes. The truck skidded but stopped in time. Without thinking, Tyson threw open his door and ran into the rain. A woman, drenched and shivering, clutched her side and tried to wave him off, but her knees buckled. "Whoa, whoa, easy," Tyson said, catching her before she hit the ground. Her skin was cold, her face pale. "You're hurt." "I'm fine," she gasped, but when she tried to step away, she winced and almost collapsed again. "Yeah, you look real fine," Tyson muttered. He glanced at Daisy, who was peering out the window with wide eyes. "Hang tight, sweetheart." Without waiting for permission, Tyson lifted the woman into his arms. She was light as a feather and surprisingly elegant, despite being soaked to the bone. He hurried back to the truck, opening the door. "Daddy, who's that?" Daisy asked, voice small. "She's sick. We're taking her to the hospital." The woman tried to protest again, but Tyson shot her a look. "You can yell at me later. Right now, you're going to the ER." The woman nodded weakly, giving up. Tyson wrapped her in an old hoodie from the backseat and drove as fast as he dared through the sheets of rain. "What's your name?" he asked, glancing over. "Camila Vargas," she whispered, pressing a hand to her ribs. "Well, Camila, you're lucky you didn't get hit." Tyson gritted his teeth. He hated hospitals, too many bad memories, but he couldn't leave someone bleeding on the side of the road. When they finally pulled up to the ER entrance, Tyson hopped out and carried her inside. A nurse rushed over with a wheelchair. "She collapsed near Willow Street," Tyson explained, breathing hard. "She's hurt bad." Camila gave him a faint, grateful smile before the nurses whisked her away. Tyson stood there dripping rainwater onto the pristine hospital floor, feeling awkward. Daisy slipped her small hand into his, looking up at him. "Is she gonna be okay, Daddy?" "I hope so, baby," he said. "We did the right thing." He turned to leave, but a nurse called after him. "Sir, are you family?" Tyson shook his head. Just a guy who didn't want her getting run over." "Wait here a moment, please. She's asking for you." Tyson blinked. "Me?" The nurse nodded. Tyson hesitated, then followed her down the hall, Daisy trailing behind. Camila was in a treatment room, hooked up to Enrollment 4, looking even paler under the harsh lights. But when she saw Tyson, her face lit up with a weak smile. "You didn't have to stay," she said softly. Tyson shrugged, didn't feel right to leave. He shifted from foot to foot, feeling out of place among the beeping machines and sterile smells. Daisy climbed onto a chair nearby, swinging her legs. Camilla's gaze softened when she looked at Daisy. "Is she your daughter?" "Yeah, Daisy. She's beautiful." "Thanks, she's my whole world." There was a long pause. Tyson scratched the back of his neck. "You got anyone you want me to call? Family? Friends?" Camila hesitated. "No, no one close." Her voice cracked on the last word, and Tyson's heart twisted. "Well, you got me for now," he said, surprising himself. Camilla's eyes shimmered. She blinked rapidly, turning her head away. A doctor came in then, announcing that Camila had bruised ribs and a mild concussion, but would be fine after some rest. They wanted to keep her overnight for observation. "You can go," Camila told Tyson when the doctor left. "Thank you for everything." Tyson opened his mouth to agree, but Daisy piped up. "We can't leave her, Daddy. She's all alone." Tyson looked at Camila. who was trying to hide the tears pooling in her eyes, and made a decision. "We're staying." Camila let out a shaky laugh. "You're stubborn." "My kid gets it from me." For the next few hours, Tyson sat by her bedside while Daisy colored in a notebook. Camila dozed off a few times, but each time she opened her eyes, Tyson was still there. "You're a good man, Tyson," she said quietly once, her voice slurred with exhaustion. "Nah," he replied gruffly, "just trying to do right." But when she smiled at him, something fluttered in his chest, something he hadn't felt in a long, long time. Tyson didn't know that the woman he'd just promised to stay with was worth millions. And Camila, she didn't care about the mud on his boots or the frayed cuffs of his jacket. For the first time in years, she felt safe. And something deep inside her whispered that she wasn't done with Tyson Bennett, not even close. The next morning, Tyson stood in the hospital corridor, shifting Daisy from one arm to the other as the discharge papers were finalized. Daisy tugged his shirt collar. "Daddy, can she come with us? She shouldn't be alone." "We'll see, honey," he murmured, unsure what he was getting himself into. Camila appeared from around the corner, moving slowly but determinedly, a small hospital bag slung over one shoulder. She wore a pair of borrowed scrubs and an oversized cardigan someone must have found for her. Her hair, damp and curling at the ends, framed her face in a way that made her look achingly fragile. "Thank you for waiting," she said, voice steadier than last night. "I can call a cab." Tyson frowned. "You don't even have shoes." She glanced down at her bare feet in hospital-issued socks and gave a soft, almost embarrassed laugh. "Right," she said. "Maybe I didn't think this through." "You're coming with us," Tyson said before she could argue. "No point in you freezing on the sidewalk." Camila hesitated, the stubborn tilt of her chin battling with something gentler in her eyes. After a long second, she nodded. The drive back to Tyson's house was quiet, save for Daisy chattering about the farm animals she wanted someday. Camila listened intently, occasionally asking questions, her voice warm but careful, as though she was still figuring out how much space she was allowed to take up. Tyson's house sat at the end of a gravel road lined with old oak trees. The white paint peeled from the sides and the porch sagged slightly, but the place had a sturdy, lived-in feel. Daisy jumped out first, racing up the steps and throwing open the door. Camila stood staring at the house, her brows pulling together. "It's not much," Tyson said, misreading her expression. "It's beautiful," she said simply. Inside, the place smelled faintly of wood smoke and coffee. Tyson cleared a spot on the couch, brushing aside a stack of mail and a few of Daisy's toys. "You can rest here. I'll grab you some socks and a blanket." Camila lowered herself carefully onto the couch, her every movement cautious. Daisy disappeared into her room, emerging a moment later with a faded pink blanket that she draped over Camila's lap without a word. Tyson returned with a pair of thick wool socks. "They're clean," he said, tossing them to her. Camila pulled them on, smiling to herself. "Do you have anyone you want to call?" Tyson asked, settling into a worn armchair across from her. She shook her head. "I'll be fine. I just need a day or two to figure things out." Tyson studied her for a moment. She didn't have the hardened edge of someone used to living rough. Her hands were smooth, nails neatly trimmed, and there was a graceful way she moved, even injured. She didn't fit into a life on the streets. "You're running from something," Tyson said, not a question. Camila's fingers tightened on the blanket. After a long pause, she said, "Not something, someone." Daisy, sensing the change in mood, climbed onto Tyson's lap. "Bad people?" she asked in a whisper. Camila blinked rapidly. "Something like that." Tyson felt a protective anger stir in his chest. He didn't know her story, but he knew what it felt like to be cornered with no one to turn to. "You're safe here," he said gruffly. Camila looked down, her voice barely above a whisper. "Thank you." The rest of the day passed in a blur. Tyson cooked a simple dinner, grilled cheese sandwiches, and tomato soup, and Camila ate every bite like it was a five-star meal. Afterward, Daisy convinced her to watch a movie, piling blankets and pillows around them on the couch. Tyson watched from the kitchen doorway, arms crossed. Camilla's laughter, soft and unguarded, filled the room when Daisy made a silly joke. It was a sound he hadn't realized he missed in his house. Later, after Daisy had fallen asleep on Camilla's shoulder, Tyson gently lifted his daughter and carried her to bed. When he returned, Camila was folding the blankets neatly, her movements slow but precise. "You don't have to do that," he said. "I want to," she replied. "You've done enough for me." He leaned against the doorframe, studying her. Every instinct told him she wasn't just a lost soul. There was something more beneath the surface, something polished and refined. But he didn't push. If she wanted to talk, she would. "I can sleep on the couch," she offered. Tyson shook his head. "You're injured, take my room, I'll crash out here." She opened her mouth to argue, but must have seen the look on his face because she closed it again. "Thank you, Tyson, for everything." He shrugged. "Get some sleep." As Camila disappeared down the hallway, Tyson sank onto the couch, staring at the ceiling. He told himself he was just being a decent human being, but deep down, he knew it was more than that. There was something about her he couldn't walk away from. In the dark, as rain began to tap softly against the windows again, Tyson made himself a promise. He'd protect her, no matter what it cost. Tyson woke before the sun, the familiar creak of the old couch under his back grounding him. He stretched his arms overhead, muscles stiff from the awkward sleeping position. In the dim light, he could just make out Camila curled up in the armchair across the room, a blanket tucked around her shoulders. She must have given up the bed for him without a word. He pushed himself up carefully, not wanting to wake her. Daisy would be up soon, and the morning routine waited for no one. Tyson rustled quietly through the kitchen cabinets, pulling out a worn frying pan and a bag of flour. Pancakes were Daisy's favorite, and after everything, it seemed right to start the day with something good. As the first batch cooked, a soft shuffle of footsteps made him turn. Camila stood in the doorway, her hair in a loose braid over one shoulder, wearing one of his old flannel shirts that nearly swallowed her whole. "I didn't mean to take your chair," she said, voice still rough from sleep. He shrugged, flipping a pancake. "You looked more comfortable there than I did." She smiled faintly, moving to the counter and leaning against it, carefully keeping weight off her injured side. Her gaze scanned the kitchen, lingering on the scuffed cabinets and chipped countertops, and Tyson braced himself for some kind of judgment. But instead, she said, "It smells amazing." "You eat pancakes." "I eat anything that isn't hospital food," she said, a teasing glint in her expression. Tyson chuckled under his breath. Daisy's door creaked open, and the little girl stumbled into the kitchen, rubbing her eyes. "Pancakes," she cheered, running to Tyson's side. "Go wash up first, kiddo," he said, ruffling her hair. Daisy groaned dramatically but obeyed, padding off to the bathroom. Camila watched her go, then turned to Tyson. "You're a good father." He glanced at her over his shoulder. "I try." Her fingers traced the edge of the counter absently. "It shows." Tyson slid a steaming plate of pancakes onto the table just as Daisy returned, hands still damp from a half-hearted washing. They all sat together, the morning light creeping through the windows, softening the rough edges of the kitchen. Camila ate with quiet gratitude, savoring each bite. Tyson caught himself watching her more than once, studying the way her eyes crinkled slightly when she smiled at Daisy's pancake tower experiments. After breakfast, Tyson pulled on his jacket. I've got to head out to the mill for a few hours. You'll be all right here. Camila nodded, gathering plates to the sink. We'll be fine. He hesitated. Leaving a stranger alone in his house went against every cautious bone in his body, but somehow it didn't feel wrong. Besides, Daisy would be with her, and Camila had proven she had a gentle touch with his daughter. If you need anything, my neighbor Ruth stops by sometimes to check on Daisy, he said. She's nosy, but harmless. Camila's lips twitched, understood. Tyson knelt to Daisy's level. Be good, okay? Listen to Camila. I will, Daddy, she said, throwing her arms around his neck. He squeezed her tightly, then straightened and grabbed his keys. I'll be back before lunch, he promised, casting one last look at Camila. Her eyes met his, steady and unwavering. We'll see you then, she said. The drive to the mill was short, the familiar road winding through fields and past rusted fences. Tyson's mind wasn't on lumber orders or equipment repairs, though. It was back at the house, picturing Camila in his kitchen, her careful hands washing dishes, her soft voice answering Daisy's endless questions. At work, he loaded timber and handled paperwork, but every so often he found himself staring into space, wondering what her story really was. She wasn't just a woman down on her luck. Her manners, her posture, even the way she spoke, none of it fit. By the time noon rolled around, Tyson was itching to get home. He clocked out early, telling the foreman he'd make up the hours later. The drive back felt longer somehow, the gravel road kicking up dust beneath his tires. When he pulled up to the house, he found Daisy and Camila sitting on the front steps, a deck of cards spread between them. Daisy's laughter rang out across the yard, and Camila's head was thrown back, genuine amusement lighting her features. It hit Tyson square in the chest. They looked like they belonged there. He climbed out of the truck, and Daisy waved frantically. Camila taught me a new game, she called. Camila looked up, her expression unreadable for a moment before she smiled warmly. She's a fast learner, Camila said, gathering the cards. Tyson joined them on the steps, lowering himself beside Daisy. You girls have fun, he asked. The best, Daisy declared. Tyson looked at Camila. You feeling okay? She nodded, better actually. There was a pause, the afternoon sun casting long shadows across the porch. I should tell you something, Camila said quietly, her fingers fidgeting with the deck of cards. Tyson leaned forward, elbows resting on his knees. I'm listening. She took a breath, steadying herself. My real name is Camila Vargas, she said, but I'm not just some woman you picked up off the street. My family owns Vargas Holdings. It's a private investment group. Tyson blinked, trying to process her words. Vargas Holdings, he repeated slowly. I've heard that name. Camila nodded. Most people have. My father built it from nothing. I was supposed to take over someday. Tyson looked at her, really looked. The poise, the polish, it all made sense now. So what happened? He asked. Her mouth tightened. My stepmother happened, she said bitterly. After my father passed, she tried to cut me out of everything. She forged documents, bribed lawyers. When I fought back, she made sure I had nothing. No home, no access to accounts, no way to prove who I really am. Tyson's hands clenched into fists. That's why you were out there, he said. Camila nodded, eyes shining. I didn't know where else to go. I didn't want to drag anyone into it. I didn't even plan to end up here. Tyson exhaled slowly, his mind racing. You're safe now, he said at last. We'll figure something out. Camila's gaze locked onto his, searching for doubt, judgment, anything that would make her regret telling him the truth. But all she found was steady, unwavering loyalty. For the first time in a long time, Camila Vargas let herself believe she wasn't alone. Not anymore. The next few days unfolded in a way Tyson never could have predicted. Camila stayed, helping around the house as much as her injuries allowed, while Daisy clung to her like a second shadow. Tyson worked the mill during the day, returning each evening to find his home warmer, almost as if life had slipped color back into the faded edges of his world. One evening, after Daisy had gone to bed early from sheer exhaustion after a day of chasing chickens at the neighbor's farm, Tyson found Camila sitting out on the porch steps. The sun had just dipped below the horizon, and the sky was painted in bruised purples and gold. He joined her, sitting close enough that their shoulders almost touched, but careful not to crowd her. "I've been thinking about what you told me the other day," he said, keeping his voice low so it wouldn't carry into the house. Camila pulled her knees up to her chest, resting her chin on them. "Figured you might have questions." "I do," Tyson admitted, "but not the kind you're probably expecting." She turned her head slightly, curiosity flickering across her face. "I don't care about the money," he said. "I don't care about some company or fancy estate. I just want to know what you want, Camila, not what your past tried to make you, not what they stole, just you." Camila stared at him, her throat working as if she was trying to find words that didn't exist yet. "I want a life that feels real," she said finally. "Not one built on appearances and empty promises. I want a family, a home where I don't have to pretend." Tyson nodded slowly, the weight of her confession sinking deep into his bones. "Well," he said, a small smile tugging at his mouth, "you're halfway there." Camila laughed, a soft breath of sound that made something tight in Tyson's chest loosen. She tucked her hair behind her ear, her fingers trembling slightly. "I don't know if it's fair, dragging you and Daisy into my mess." Tyson leaned back on his elbows, gazing up at the stars beginning to prick through the darkening sky. "You're not dragging us anywhere," he said. "We're walking with you." Silence stretched between them, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It felt like the kind of silence that built things rather than broke them. After a while, Camila said, "I have a friend. He's a lawyer, one of the few people I trust. I think he might be able to help me prove who I am and take back what's mine." Tyson looked over at her. The determination in her eyes was back, burning brighter than before. "What do you need from me?" he asked. Her lips parted like she was about to decline, to tell him she didn't want to involve him further. But then she caught herself, exhaled slowly, and said, "I need a place to meet him, somewhere safe." Tyson didn't hesitate. "Here's as safe as it gets." She blinked hard, and for the first time since that rainy night, she didn't argue. The next day, while Tyson arranged for Ruth to watch Daisy, Camila made the call. She kept her voice low, pacing the edge of the porch like a caged bird finally seeing the open sky. By noon, a silver sedan rolled up the driveway, kicking up dust. A tall man in a sharp suit stepped out, looking distinctly out of place against the backdrop of Tyson's weathered farmhouse and fields. Camila hurried down the steps to meet him. Tyson stayed back, giving them space but keeping watch just the same. Trust didn't come easy. After a brief conversation, Camila waved Tyson over. "Tyson, this is Daniel, my lawyer and oldest friend." Daniel extended his hand. Tyson shook it, his grip firm but not aggressive. "Thank you for taking care of her," Daniel said, sincerity threading his words. Tyson nodded. "She's family now." Camila's breath hitched at that, but she quickly turned her attention back to Daniel. They spent the afternoon going over documents Daniel had brought, papers that, if signed and filed correctly, would start the process of reclaiming Camila's rightful place within Vargas Holdings. There were hurdles ahead, legal battles that would take months, maybe longer. But it was a beginning. As the sun dipped low, Daniel packed up, promising to stay in touch. He left with a final handshake for Tyson and a lingering, brotherly hug for Camila. When his car disappeared down the road, Camila turned to Tyson, her expression unreadable. "I don't know how to thank you," she said. Tyson rubbed the back of his neck. "Don't need thanks, just need you to stay." Camila stepped closer. Close enough that Tyson could see the faint freckles across her nose, the way her eyes caught the last bits of light. "I'm not going anywhere," she said. Without thinking, Tyson reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Her breath caught, but she didn't pull away. "You're different than anyone I've ever known," she whispered. "I'm just a guy trying to keep his head above water," Tyson said, his thumb tracing the line of her jaw. "You're more than that," Camila said. "You're the reason I remembered how to hope." The space between them vanished like it had never existed. Tyson kissed her, slow and sure, grounding himself in the reality of her. When they finally broke apart, Camila rested her forehead against his. "I love you," she said, the words spilling out like a truth she could no longer hold back. Tyson closed his eyes, letting the weight of it wash over him. "I love you too, Camila Vargas," he said, "millionaire or not." She laughed through her tears, and he kissed her again, sealing the promise between them. Weeks later, Camila stood in the middle of Tyson's kitchen, holding a letter from the court declaring her the rightful heir to Vargas Holdings once more. She set it down carefully, as if afraid it might vanish. Tyson came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "You did it," he said, kissing the side of her neck. "We did it," she corrected, leaning back against him. Daisy burst into the room, waving a crayon drawing of their little family. Tyson, Camila, Daisy, and a dog she had decided they would adopt soon. "We're getting a dog," Daisy announced. Tyson laughed. "Guess we are." Camila crouched down, scooping Daisy into her arms. "We're a family," she said. Tyson watched them, his heart so full he thought it might burst. Later that night under the stars, Tyson knelt on the porch with a small, simple ring in his hand. No fanfare, no speeches, just the truth. "Marry me," he said. Camilla's eyes filled with tears, but her smile was radiant. "Yes," she said, her voice steady and sure. Tyson slid the ring onto her finger, and she threw her arms around him, laughing and crying at the same time. In that moment, with the crickets singing and the world spinning quietly around them, Tyson knew he had everything he would ever need. A woman who chose him over everything she could have had. A daughter who called him her hero. A life that finally felt complete. The early autumn air was crisp, carrying the scent of wood smoke and fallen leaves across the Bennett farm. Tyson tightened the last bolt on the new chicken coop he had been building. He stood, stretching his back, and caught sight of Camila in the distance, walking hand in hand with Daisy toward the vegetable patch, a wicker basket swinging between them. Since reclaiming her rightful place in Vargas Holdings, Camila had made a choice that still amazed Tyson. She had entrusted the day-to-day operations to a trusted board, choosing instead to invest her time in building a life with him and Daisy, here in the countryside. Wealth meant nothing to her if it didn't come with laughter at the dinner table and muddy footprints on the porch. He wiped his hands on a rag and made his way toward the garden. Daisy was proudly presenting a crooked carrot she had just yanked from the earth. "This one's huge," Daisy exclaimed, her face lit with triumph. Camila crouched beside her, examining the carrot with an exaggerated seriousness. "I think you might have discovered a new species." Tyson chuckled as he approached. "She's gonna feed the whole town with that one." Camila stood, brushing dirt from her hands. "We thought we'd make stew tonight. Celebrate." Tyson raised an eyebrow. "Celebrate what?" Camilla's eyes sparkled with mischief. "Life, us, everything." Later, while Daisy napped curled up with her favorite storybook, Tyson and Camila worked together in the kitchen. She chopped vegetables with precise, graceful movements while he stirred the broth. A comfortable rhythm had emerged between them, like they had been doing this their whole lives. "Do you ever miss it?" Tyson asked, keeping his eyes on the pot. "The city, the company." Camila set down her knife and wiped her hands on a towel. She leaned against the counter, considering his question. "I miss some parts," she admitted. "The challenge, the feeling of building something from nothing, but being here with you and Daisy, it's different, it's real. I don't have to fight for every breath. I can just breathe." Tyson turned to her, the wooden spoon forgotten in his hand. "You belong here, Camila, with us." She crossed the small distance between them and took his hand, squeezing it. "I know," she said, "and I never want to be anywhere else." The stew simmered through the evening, filling the house with the kind of warmth Tyson hadn't realized he'd been missing. They ate by lamplight, Daisy chattering about her plans for a Halloween costume, Camila laughing and tossing playful glances at Tyson across the table. After dinner, Tyson carried Daisy to bed, tucking her in and brushing a kiss across her forehead. When he returned to the living room, he found Camila sitting by the fire, her hands folded in her lap, a faintly nervous air about her. He sat beside her, nudging her knee with his. "Something on your mind?" he asked. She bit her lip, then slipped a small, wrapped package from behind a cushion. "I was going to wait, but I can't anymore," she said, holding it out to him. Tyson took it, his brows furrowed. He carefully unwrapped the paper to reveal a leather-bound journal, the cover embossed with his initials. "I noticed you're always scribbling notes on scraps of paper. I thought maybe you'd like something better," she said, watching him with anxious hope. Tyson ran his thumb over the cover, a lump forming in his throat. No one had ever given him something so thoughtful, so personal. "I love it," he said gruffly. "Thank you." Camilla's shoulders relaxed, her smile blooming like the first day of spring. "I want you to write our story in it," she said. "All of it, so one day Daisy can read about how we built this life together." Tyson set the journal aside and pulled her into his arms. "I'll write it," he promised, "every word." Camila pressed her forehead against his, their breaths mingling. "I've never been so sure of anything," she whispered. Tyson kissed her, slow and deep, sealing the vow between them. The next morning, they gathered under the oak tree by the barn, dressed in their Sunday best. Ruth stood with a small, leather-bound book, beaming as she prepared to officiate. A few close neighbors had come, bringing baskets of flowers and homemade pies for the celebration. Daisy stood between Tyson and Camila, wearing a white dress and holding a bouquet almost as big as she was. Tyson took Camilla's hands in his voice steady. "I spent a long time thinking I wasn't meant for anything more than surviving," he said. "But you showed me what living really means. I promise to love you, protect you, and build a life with you every single day." Camilla's eyes shone with tears, but her voice was clear. "I spent so long fighting for things that didn't matter, but you and Daisy, you're my heart. I promise to stand by you, to laugh with you, and to love you with everything I am." Ruth wiped her eyes and declared them husband and wife. Tyson swept Camila into a kiss that earned cheers from the small crowd. Daisy jumped up and down, clapping her hands, her joy infectious. They spent the afternoon dancing in the yard, eating too much pie, and laughing until their sides hurt. As the sun dipped low, Tyson lifted Camila onto the old swing hanging from the oak tree, pushing her gently as her laughter floated through the golden air. "I'm the luckiest man alive," Tyson said, standing behind her, his hands on the ropes. Camila twisted slightly to look at him, her hair catching the last rays of sunlight. "No," she said, her voice full of wonder. "We're the luckiest." They watched Daisy chasing fireflies across the yard, her giggles like music. Tyson wrapped his arms around Camila from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. The future stretched out before them, wide and open and full of promise. They had faced storms, betrayal, and heartbreak, but in the end, love had built something stronger than all of it. Together, they had found something not even fortune could buy: a home, a family, and a love that would last a lifetime.